Hey everyone, welcome to a guide on how to play Bake. In this guide I'll be going over things like laning, map playability, usage, and more. This is a support guide, so even though he's also playing the solo lane, we'll be focusing on the support style of play. So without further ado, let's get into the guide. To start off, let's go over his camp clear. Bake has AoE auto attacks, which means in most cases he can do a 3 camp start. If you can do it, this start is preferred over the 2 camp start because it allows you to get to lane quicker, which gains you pressure on the first wave. Speaking of the wave, his clear is very simple. Try using your second ability to hit an enemy, probably their support, then the wave will group aggro onto you. This makes clearing the wave that much easier since every portion of it can now be hit by your AoE auto attacks. Now by this point you're probably wondering what ability you should get first. I like getting his 2 first because it's got the highest base damage for the least amount of work. So what I like doing is getting my 2, then my 3, and finally at level 3 I'm getting my 1. Another tip for laning is that you can actually knock the minions back with your 3, which is another easy clear since it also groups the wave. It's really just your preference, but beware when you do this, now your dash is down and you're vulnerable to getting ganked or focused. From here the rest of the lane is pretty much straightforward and you play it as you would any other support. Just try to get pressure, play for shield buff, and if you can, go for the enemy's purple or back camps. As we leave lane, let's look at how Bake can play the map. One thing this character does really well compared to most supports is damage. His auto attacks being able to scale off of protections, which we'll get more into later, allow him to be a threat by himself. This can mean chasing down and annoying targets or even soloing enemy camps. With this pressure and sort of freedom to roam the map, one major thing to do is keeping wards on the enemy side of the map. Mostly in the duo side jungle since this is where you should be spending most of your time, since shield buff, oracles, beacon, and even gold fear are all placed over here. Putting wards at their back camps allows you to gain information on where they are, in particular where the enemy jungler is. And knowing timers allows you to solo invade them because you actually have decent clearing capability. Overall, keep in mind as a support player, you want to be on time for timers. So staring at the map and getting to areas where camps spawn in advance is a really big thing to do. Also try enabling ganks in duo or mid lane. You can do this easier by playing certain corners in advance, so when the enemy walks up, you're behind them, which makes the gank easier. Now we're off to the fun stuff. To get us started, let's look at what abilities to level in max. As mentioned before, I like getting my 2 first, then I typically get my dash and my 1/3. Now from here there's a lot you can do because all of Bake's abilities are honestly really good. I personally like to level my dash. The reason being is because as you level your dash, you get increased stun duration. So it starts off at 0.5 seconds and scales all the way up to 1.5 seconds at max rank. Now I actually don't fully max this ability right away. I like to get 3 points into it. This way you can actually feel the stun after they get pushed. Now bear with me on this next part as it can get a little complicated, but it all flows together in the end. From here I like to max the 2. I do this because as you level it, you get increased damage and increased damage reduction applied to targets, which also increases the amplification. Now, what do I mean by amplification? Well, part of Bake's passive is whenever he gets hard CC'd, for example stuns, taunts, those kinds of abilities, he applies a curse to whoever CC'd him, which makes them do reduced damage. This damage reduction is leveled through Bake's 2, and whenever you 2 a target that has a curse on them, it applies another curse creating an amplification effect, which increases the potency of the curse. This amplification can reach up to 20% damage reduction. Now that's not all. Whenever Bake lands a successful auto attack onto an enemy, it reduces the cooldown of his 2, but do note that hitting enemy characters reduces it pretty significantly versus minions. So all in all, with the way his kit flows, this ability is some of Bake's highest damage, and the damage reduction you apply matters way more in a fight than you might think. From here I max the dash, then I put more points into his ult, and finally I end off maxing his 1. The reason why I don't try to max his ult right away is because I feel like his 2 and his 3 offer so much more that they should be maxed out right away. Now this is the way I like to level him, which means that there might be other ways that you might like more. However, I find this to be the most effective leveling order. Next, let's get into items and relics. Now, I don't really like giving out full builds because in support your build is really dictated on a game per game basis. However, there are items and relics I prefer on him because I feel like they complement his kit. To lay it out, Compassion, Thieves, and Shoguns are items I really like on Bake. Thieves I just get every game no matter their support. It's just an insanely good item. But Compassion I really like on him because it complements the damage reduction portion of his kit. If you're hitting the enemy dive with your 2, you're reducing their damage and Compassion is going to let your allies mitigate even more damage. So all in all, it's going to take a lot more damage for them to kill your allies. Shoguns I really like on him because besides being an aura for your allies, the attack speed you get from it adds on to his passive. He actually doesn't get attack speed from items, instead this attack speed is transformed into haste. For those of you who don't know what haste is, it's a way to counteract being slowed from auto attacking. See, when you auto attack you're slowed by 50%. Haste counteracts this measure. Think of Haste and Katana for assassins or Haste and Ring for magical ADCs. In both of these cases you have no movement speed debuff. Now think of these items as giving you 100% haste. In Bake's case, when he activates his 1, he automatically gets 50% haste. And because of his passive, when he builds attack speed items like Shoguns, he gets extra haste. This effect can reach up to 100% with his 1 and passive combined, effectively giving him a free haste in Katana. As for relics, there's really just one that I try to get on him every game, and that's Slow Curse. This relic reduces damage, which complements Bake's 2 and Compassion. It also slows them, which complements his 2 again, since Bake's 2 slows by up to 30% amplified. Well, if you made it this far into the video, it tells me you really want to learn everything you can about Bake. So finally, I want to get to my favorite part of the video and I want to go over some tips and tricks with them. To start, picking up where we left off, the final reason why I really like going slow curse with him is because of his ult. Bake's ult creates stacks of time dilation, which caps out at 40%. If you don't know what time dilation is, it's pretty much Oleron ult. The cool thing about time dilation is its CC is a massive slow field which affects virtually everything in Smite. The only things it doesn't affect from my knowledge are Gold Fury, Pyromancer, Fire Giant, and the Titan. However, everything else is fair game, including abilities and yes, even structures. But we'll get to the structures in a second. Whenever you slow someone with slow curse and pop your 2 on them and ult them, they are extremely slow. With just these 2 abilities and slow curse, you have insane amounts of debuffs placed on them. So the tip here is pretty much to use slow curse in conjunction with your ult, as well as your 2. Now, our next tip brings us back to Bake's ultimate effect on structures. Bake's ult can slow both the attack speed and projectile of the structure that's inside of his ult. So this is a really nice ability to use whenever you're looking to tower dive or siege enemy structures. You can even use his ult in conjunction with Emperor's Armor and Runic Bomb to get some insanely slow tower shots. I mean, just look how slow it's shooting. You'd think it was completely out of commission. One ability we haven't really covered a whole lot is Bake's 1. The main tip I want to give here is besides his 1 giving increased auto range, it also gives him stacking protections per successful auto attack that he lands. This effect stacks up to 60 extra prots. But what's crazy is part of Bake's passive is 30% of his prots get converted to auto attack power. I think you know where this is going. Since it gives prots and prots give power, he gets more auto attack damage when his 1 is active. So essentially you want to open up a fight with your 1 proc and just make sure throughout the fight you're always spamming your auto attacks. Remember, they also reduce the cooldown of your 2. Another tip is don't be afraid to dash targets that are knockback immune. Typically you wouldn't be able to knock back a Guan while he's 3ing for instance, since he's knockback immune, but Bake's dash actually goes through any knockback immunity. I believe this is because the stun on his dash is applied first, allowing him to cancel any currently channeled ability and knockback targets. Alright everyone, so that's the end of the guide. Bake's still fairly new, at least at the time of making this video, so I'm sure down the line players will find out more stuff about him, but I hope this guide sets you on the right path to playing him and just becoming a better support player overall. I actually find this character really fun, but his kit's a bit different than the normal support. His peel isn't as apparent as someone who has multiple hard CC abilities, like Ganesh for example, but his kit is very support-like in the sense that it has a mixture of peel for your allies and debuffs for the enemy. So all in all, I hope you found this guide well, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.